Corey's the first one on, and there we go. All right. Okay, Ephesians chapter 5, verse number 33 is our key verse that we've been focusing on. It says, "Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband." So to kind of give you a quick, brief overview of the last couple weeks that we've been discussing, and I have some visuals over here. The added little man up in the corner is not my doing, but it fits the crazy cycle. I mean, that might be your emotional self when you're in discussions or conflict with your husband and or wife. That may be exactly what you look like. But the basic concept is men need respect, women need love. That is how God has made us. And again, just to clarify, women also need respect and men also need love. But the primary need for each part of the marriage, spouses, is the love and the respect. So without the love the wife needs, she reacts in a certain way. And usually she reacts in a way that to the husband seems disrespectful. And so then without respect, the husband also reacts. And he usually reacts without respect. He reacts in a way that seems unloving or is unloving to the wife. And you just get this big merry-go-round of emotions and outbursts and hurt feelings and not being fulfilled in the way that God planned for us to be. And it's the key, the Brother Emerson that wrote the book calls it a crazy cycle. And it is indeed. And in any marriage, you can find yourself there. And you've been there. If you've been married any amount of time, you've been in the crazy cycle at some point or another. It's not exclusive to time. It's not exclusive to background or to culture or to anything. It is part of life because we all have sin in our life and we are all part of this world, and it's part of our marriages. Now, the key is how do we, if it starts to spin, if we start to get on that crazy cycle, how do we slow it down and get off? How do we change it? How do we make sure that we're not part of the crazy cycle and recognize it when it comes up? So one of the things we talked about last week was our communication. And how men kind of see through blue tinted glasses and hear through a blue hearing aid, and women see through a pink tinted glasses and hear through pink hearing aids, just to be the whole boy-girl thing. You know, you can use any color you want. Really doesn't matter. But we interpret things differently because of how we're made, because of how God made us as men and as women. We mean things differently when we say them. Even with the example we used is staring in front of your closet. Men will stand in front of the closet and say, "I have nothing to wear." And women will stand in front of the closet and say, "I have nothing to wear." Both saying literally the same words, but meaning completely different things. The wife says, "I have nothing new to wear," is really what she means. And the husband, at least in my case, is like, "I have nothing to wear that fits anymore." Or nothing that's clean. Either way. But they both say the same thing, but they mean something completely different. And that's the very kind of funny but basic way to understand how men and women hear things differently. They say things differently. They mean things different even when they say them. And as a spouse, as a husband, as a wife, you have to get good at deciphering what your spouse means. And as a spouse speaking, you have to understand that they're going to hear it differently and see it differently depending on their perspective and who they are. So we as a couple have to get better at saying things the way we know they'll interpret it, the right way. And we have to work on listening and hearing what they're actually saying and understanding what they mean. It takes both of us to kind of give in a little bit, right? It's not, well, if he would just say it differently or just act differently, then I could. Or if she would just act differently, then I would. It's not a if she will or he will, then I will. It's I will no matter what. And that's how a good marriage is going to be working. If two partners are saying I will no matter what they do, you're going to be in agreement a lot more times than you won't. So that's the crazy cycle that we talked about here the last couple weeks. This week, there's going to be a lot of repeat in a lot of these first, I think like 7 or 8 weeks. There's going to be a lot of going back and talking about things we already talked about and kind of reiterating some of those things. But it's going to lay the groundwork for when we get into more specific. There are acronyms involved later, so those are always good, acronyms that spell out things to help us remember things, specifically for the husband, specifically for the wife. So a little bit of a review there. Take your Bibles, go to Esther, if you hopefully found your place there. Esther 1, we're going to get there here in just a second. So the title of the chapter in this book, or the title that we're going to go with today, is What Men Fear Most. What men fear most. And that's the one thing that men fear most can keep the crazy cycle going. The thing that men fear most, and this is when it comes to I'm not talking about spiders, or heights, or, whatever you're afraid of. But the thing that is most fearful for men when it comes to marriage is, and a lot of times we as men don't even know how to articulate it or say it. We don't know that we're even afraid of this, and we may not even know how to verbalize it, but it's there. And then this isn't based on what I know. This is based on Bible principles and also based on this man that's done 20, 30, 40 years of marriage counseling and teaching this across the country. And we'll get into some statistics here in a little bit that kind of prove it. But, when you look at a husband and wife, you look at usually the cases, the man's a big, strong man. He's the leader of the house, and the wife is this, cute little thing that just needs him around, and he just looks like this big, strong guy. But big, strong, strapping men, the one thing they fear when it comes to their marriage, almost more than anything, is contempt from their wife. Contempt from their wife. No matter how physically big and strong that they are emotionally vulnerable to what sounds like contempt. Yes, the big, strong men have emotions. We all have emotions, men, even though you might, put them away, pretend like they're not there, and nothing bothers you, nothing phases you. We all have emotions because we're all created in God's image, and God created us with emotions. So we have emotions, and the thing that we emotionally are vulnerable to as men is contempt. Being afraid of the wife just thinking so little of us that it's almost viewed as contempt. And so we're going to focus on that today. And wives, I don't want you to feel like we're harping on you, because we're not. This is not a way to put you down and put you in your place so the man feels like he's, all right, I'm in charge again. But this is a part of the man that emotionally they will not address most times. And we as men will put it down and pretend like it doesn't exist. But by doing that, we react in a certain way that seems unloving. And that keeps that cycle going. So, men, I'm going to try to help you with being able to understand this is how you're feeling and how to deal with it. And women, I'm going to try to help you to understand, not me, but we're going to try to help you understand how your husband's feeling and how you can help him there. And how you can make sure it's not interpreted as disrespectful, but find a way to get around some of that emotional baggage that the man might have. So, Esther chapter 1, it's so much so men fear contempt, and this is an example in Scripture where the entire nation was afraid of the contempt of women. So go down to verse number 17 of Esther chapter 1. So basically, Queen Vashti is supposed to come. The king has asked her to come and do some things for him and his princes in his hall, and she says, no, I'm not going to do it. She basically says no to him, and the whole court, his whole people that are kind of his advisors are like, oh no, this is a bad example. If your queen won't even respect you enough, we're going to have problems across the entire nation because all wives are going to decide to do this. Might be a little dramatic, but just this is the point we're trying to make here. Verse 17 says, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. So they're afraid that the example the queen has given of disrespect is going to spread across the entire kingdom. And then everyone's going to say, well, look, the queen was contemptuous and didn't do what her king husband said. Why do I have to? My husband's not even a king. And they were afraid that the entire nation, the men were afraid that they were going to just be, they're in for it. The wives were just be like, you know what? I don't have to do this anymore. I can stand up for myself. And the men were afraid that that's what was going to happen. Now, there's a lot of different places we can go, and a lot of women that don't have the right biblical perspective of marriage would be like, yeah, stand up for yourselves. We don't have to take anything. We're equal, right? We deserve everything the men deserves. And in this context here, this king is not a godly king, and he didn't ask his queen to do anything godly. But the premise here is that God is showing us, and the thing we're taking here is that it's showing you that men are terrified of contempt. It's the one thing that they fear the most when it comes to their marriage. It's so much so that the whole nation was afraid of it. Conflict, when you get into conflict, when conflict arises in your marriage, when you're having a disagreement, right? And sometimes it can start small over something very little, but when it starts to escalate and brew and it becomes full-blown conflict, most men will end up feeling disrespected in conflict, in arguments. That's, again, not saying that's what the wife is meaning to happen or that the wife is even being disrespectful in conflicts. But most time when conflicts arise, men will end up feeling disrespected. Okay, so we're going to kind of dig into that a little bit. There was this survey done, decision analysts, there you go, just got to slow down. It's the coffee, you can't talk well when you drink coffee. Decision Analyst Inc. did a national survey. I don't know what year this was done, but they asked one question to all these men, a large group, that said, even the best relationships sometimes have conflicts on day-to-day issues. In the middle of a conflict with my wife, I am more likely feeling A, that my wife doesn't respect me right now, or B, that my wife doesn't love me right now. They were given those options. When you come into a conflict and you're in the middle of a conflict, and it doesn't have just anything, any conflict you're having, how do you usually end up feeling? That your wife doesn't respect you or that your wife doesn't love you? And 81.5% said that my wife doesn't respect me. And we talked about this again in the past few weeks, that men don't really very ever doubt that their wife loves them. If you ask a man, does your wife love you? Most of the times they're like, yeah, I know my wife loves me. But then if you turn around and say, but does she like you? That might be a different answer, right? Because she might not like you. They're not afraid that she loves you, but you're wondering, maybe she doesn't quite like me. And that's typically how the thing is answered. And that's where you see in that question there that's how men will end up feeling a lot of times in conflict. And again, it's not necessarily the wife's fault. It takes two, and we're going to try to get through that. So it reinforces that question there, though. It does reinforce that men need respect more than anything else. The man in the marriage relationship, men need respect. Women need love, men need respect. Go back to your dating times. Right? Go back to your courtship. And that's, some of us, it may have just been a few months ago. Some of us, it may have been years ago. But wherever it was and wherever you were, whether it was at college, or whether you met at church or you met at work, when you first started liking her or you first started noticing him, right? When you go through that type of relationship, what motivated your man to get down on one knee and ask you to marry him? What was it that pushed him to that point and motivated him to say, this is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with? Yes, it was love. Of course, he loved you. He definitely did. There's no doubt about it. It was the love he felt. But what mostly motivated him to that point was the admiration and respect that you had towards him that whole dating time. Right? Think about it before you knew him real well, right? And knew all his mistakes and his flaws. He was the best, right? He was the most handsome. He was the strongest. He was just the best thing since sliced bread, that you'd never met a man like him before. Amen. Right? Yeah, trying to build this up here a little bit. You just loved him. You thought he was great. You admired him. You respected him. And you showed him that. You told him that. Your notes that you wrote, whatever things that you did, you showed him how much you admired him, how much you respected him. Yes, how much you loved him. And that is important too. But what he got from you is that respect and that love. And that admiration is what was essential to him for you winning his heart. We always talked about the man having to win the women's heart and woo her and win her over. Well, you had to win his heart too, right? There were at that point, not anymore, but at that point there were a lot of fish in the sea. He could have picked anyone because of how awesome he was, but he picked you because you won his heart with your admiration for him, your respect. He knew that you thought the world of him, and to him that was everything. And again, a lot of times we as men might not even know how to articulate that, and maybe we didn't even realize that. But if you take an honest look at your courtship time and your dating time, and you see how you were treated and how you felt about her, the respect she gave you and the admiration you felt from her, the way she made you feel, made you love her. It brought up emotions and feelings and thoughts towards her because of the way she approached you and treated you and respected you. And we can find ourselves getting into marriage further down the line when we do get to know each other a little better, and you do end up seeing his flaws, and you do see that he is not perfect. He leaves wet towels on the bathroom floor, right? He doesn't put his clothes away in the hamper. They're laying on the floor next to the hamper. How hard is it to get it from the floor into the hamper, right? Like, you see those types of things, and maybe you don't even realize it, but you don't treat him with that kind of admiration and respect anymore because how hard is it to put clothes in a hamper? And it's not because you disrespect him or you don't love him anymore, but it's frustrating to you because when he leaves his clothes on the side of the hamper, not in the hamper, it makes you feel like, well, he just doesn't really care that I have to be the one that has to pick it up and put it in the hamper because I'm the one that does the laundry. So he doesn't care about me enough to take the time to put the clothes in the hamper. So he's not loving me like I need to be loved. And so it comes across as, how hard is it? Sarcastically, maybe even disrespectfully. And then after years and months he picks it up and then the next day he does it again, it starts to become frustrating. And then maybe it can even come across as contentious. It's like, I'm just sick and tired of you not doing it. I'm taking a small thing and trying to blow it up on purpose. But I'm sick and tired of you not putting your clothes. If you can't put your clothes, what are we even doing here? Why? What is this? You want to do the laundry? And it can escalate and explode into something. And the wife feels unloved because he doesn't care enough to do it. And then now the husband starts to feel disrespected because it's a shirt. It's 3 feet away from the top of the hamper. It's not because I don't care. It's just I'm tired. I work, and he throws in his reasons. And now he starts to feel disrespected, and he starts to act that way. What's wrong with you? Why you give me a break? Lay off. And where are we? We're spinning. We're full-blown spinning on a crazy cycle over a shirt on the floor, not in the basket. And that's how the admiration can kind of slip away, and the wife can start to act in a certain way that'll cause the husband to act in a certain way, and there we are right on that circle. So we have to remember that men need respect, wives need love. And if we will intentionally act that way towards our spouse, and sometimes things need to be taken care of, right? Guys, pick up the clothes. Take the towel off the floor. It's not a hard thing to do, but it shows that you're listening to things that matter to her, and she interprets that as love. And when he makes a mistake, ladies, hopefully he's trying, but even if he doesn't, right? Because it doesn't matter if he tries or not. But even if he doesn't, find a way to get that across without being like, what is your problem, man? Why can't you do what I ask you to do? A simple thing. We have to find ways to decipher each other's messages, to talk to each other in a way that is loving and respectful. So think back to when you were dating and how you treated each other, and try to bring some of that respect back. Try to bring some of that loving way we talk back. So when it comes to conflicts, and I just went through a little small one, but you can see, and we all laugh because we've been there, or something similar, or maybe that exact thing. And I'm not saying that that's exactly what's happened in my life, so don't try to say that, because those are just examples I just pull out of thin air. It doesn't mean they're real. But when conflict comes, we also find in some studies that 85% of men will do one particular thing when conflict comes, and that's stonewalling or shutting down, emotionally withdrawing, just cutting off the conflict, the conversation. And you've probably been there too, men. You've probably done this. And wives, you've probably seen your husband do this. You'll be in an exchange. You'll be in a discussion, we'll say, during conflict, and a tense exchange will come. And the husband will interpret these needs that the wife has, and it's really her calling out for love, but he'll take them as criticism, and he'll take them as contempt, and they'll overwhelm us as men, and instead of dealing with it, we're done. We shut down, we quit the conversation, and we stop talking. And we don't walk away a lot of times, but we'll just sit there, and it'll be quiet, we'll stare, we will not smile. We will probably nod, grunt, and then the wife is just trying to get through to the husband. She's trying to show him that she needs his love, and he is interpreting it wrong, and he'll just shut down. And that frustrates the wife even more. And then the heart rate starts going up. The man's heart rate's already elevated. His blood pressure is up to here. The steam is starting to come out of his ears, and he just shuts down. And the reason a lot of times he shuts down is because men value respect. We value respect, and we also almost equate respect with honor, right? We look at respect as being honorable. And when we get into a conversation that is heated, and we feel we're disrespected with our spouse, with our wife, who we love more than anyone else on this earth, any other adult on this earth, she is the one we love more than anybody in this planet. And when we get to a point where we're going to say something that's probably going to be hurtful or mean or come across as angry, a lot of times, some men, they'll lose their temper and they'll let it fly, right? And then you have a different situation. But 85% of the time, men will just stop. That's because they don't want to say something that might be disrespectful or unhonorable and talk to their wife that way. Not always, but sometimes that happens. And when you ask the man, why did you stonewall? He'll usually say, I'm trying not to react. I'm trying not to overreact. I'm trying not to react. I'm trying to control myself and keep myself from saying something I shouldn't say that's disrespectful or mean or harsh, and they keep it to themselves. But we all know in conflict, you can't resolve a conflict if one side's not engaging, if one side's not communicating. It goes nowhere. And it usually ends in a frustrating, he goes his way, she goes her way for a while until things simmer down. And hopefully you can revisit it, but sometimes you just sweep it under the rug and pretend it's not there until the next time something happens and all that comes out plus a new thing and you have a bigger problem. So with men, we've got to learn, how do we communicate? How do we express to our wives the things that we need to say and things that we are feeling in those types of situations and not shut down? And wives, you need to figure out a way, how do we get through to him, and you're not trying to be disrespectful. You're not in a situation where you're demanding and being overbearing, but it can sometimes come across that way, even though that's not what's in your heart, even though that's not what you're trying to do. Now, we're all human, and there may be times that you do try to do that. There may be times you do try to put him in his place. And husbands, there may be time you don't stonewall, but you let it rip and put her in her place. Hopefully when those things happen, you realize you have just sinned, and you understand that you're treating your spouse in an improper way. But we are human, and I understand sometimes those things happen. But when we get into that stonewalling, criticizing, crazy cycle, the wife sees it as unloving. When you shut down, men, when you quiet, when you close off, the wife sees it as unloving. She sees it as you not trying anymore and not caring to resolve and just shutting down. And she views that as unloving, which only amps up her desire to resolve it even more. Now, she may come across in a way that is, again, criticizing, you feel, but it's her saying, no, please don't shut down. I need you to love me. Please love me. Don't close down. I need this to be resolved. And it can, again, we're back on the crazy cycle. So we have to figure out a way to get off of that cycle. So one way we're going to kind of think about this is look at when women get in conflict with each other, right? Your sister, your mom, your best friend, whatever the case may be. And I know things don't always go this way. Things may be different. There could be different situations. But if you think about it, when women get in conflict, they get into an argument or a disagreement, they want to share their feelings. Women want to talk about it, right? They want to hash it out. They want to talk it out. They want to share what's in their heart to their girlfriend, to their sister, to their mom, whoever. They want to share what's going on in here, and they both want to do this. They want to share what's going on in here and get it out in the open and talk about it, right? So this might be a conversation. Once you get through it all, one of the ladies may say, well, you know what? I was wrong. And what happens? The other one will be like, no, I was wrong too. Right? That's usually how it goes. And she says, will you forgive me? The first one says. And the second says, yes, of course I'll forgive you. I'm sorry. And then what happens? They'll hug, they'll cry, and then with a few minutes they're laughing. Right? That's how, and I know I'm really minimizing, and please don't take offense. I know that's not always how it goes, and I'm not trying to minimize. I'm just trying to give an example. Initially, that's what the woman wants to do. They want to resolve it. So with their best friends, with their moms, they'll talk it out. They'll probably both end up apologizing for their behavior because they see that they've both been wrong in some area. They'll work it out, they'll hug, they'll cry, they'll laugh, and they'll resolve it. And they'll both feel good about it. Unfortunately, ladies, you can't do that with your husband. Your husband doesn't work that way. The man does not do that. When men get into conflicts, there's no hugging, there's no crying, and sometimes there might be laughing, but there's probably some pushing. There might be a punch once in a while, right? But they don't sit down and hash things out that way. They just don't do that. That's not how men are made. Now, if they get in a conflict, they may apologize. They may be, hey, sorry I said that. And they'll be, yeah, it's fine. Done. That's it. Or he might be like, yeah, that was not cool. I was really mad at you. Like, yeah, I made a mistake. My bad. Done. Over. And that's how the conversation is. They're honest. They apologize. It's not to say that men don't apologize. But when a wife you get into an argument, a wife instinctively wants to move towards her husband and to share her feelings. She wants to lay it all out for him because he's the one she cares about the most in the whole entire world. So she wants to treat similar to she does with her girlfriends or her mom or whatever. And she wants to get there, put it all out. And the goal for her is eventually for both sides to admit they're wrong, say they're sorry, and to make up. And that's how the wife manages the relationship. That's how she keeps it up to date. Right? She doesn't want to let things fester and go and pretend like they're not there. She wants to get it all out, talk about it, make sure it's out there so that you're on the same page, you're on the same level, everyone's okay. But when those conflicts come, when you go to your girlfriend or your mom, a lot of times wives are a little bit more lenient with their best friend or with their mom, and they're a little more harsh and judgmental when it comes to their husband. You'll say things in conflicts to your husband that you probably wouldn't say to your mom or your girlfriend, right? You'd be a little bit more judgmental, sound a little more harsh. And the reason that you do this, wives, a lot of times is because you're his helpmeet, right? You're your husband's loving helpmeet, and your goal, your mission is to help him be a better loving man. You want him to see what you need from him. And your goal in those conflicts is to get him to a point where he understands, not because you know best, but because you want him to know what you need. And so you might be a little bit more harsh with some of the things he's done or said, because you need him to understand how you feel and that you need his love. And you may come across a little more harsh and a little more judgmental because he's your man, he's your guy. He's the one you're with forever. Right? On this earth, he's the one man that you love more than anything else, and you want him to be everything you need. Because that's how God made you. God made you to need him to love you like Christ loved the church. Right? That's what you need from him. And so you want to help him be there. You want to be the Holy Spirit of the home. You want to be the one to push him along and not because you're selfish, not because you demand to be treated a certain way, but because you feel like that's your duty and your mission to help this marriage be exactly what it is to help push him to the point where you need him to be. And you may not even think that when it's going on and feel that way, but that's kind of the reason why you're pushing them that way. And you feel free to do that because you are his helpmeet. You're the one God gave him to you. God gave you to him to help complete him, right? That's what Eve was for, to be a completer for Adam. And that's what you are for. You complete your man. You two become one. Without him, he is not everything he can be. So a lot of times that's why a wife will push a little harder. And she can also fail to see that her self-image rests on what her husband thinks of her. Right? She cares what her friends think. You care what your mom thinks, but nowhere near as much as what you care what your husband thinks of you. You care what your husband thinks of you more importantly than anything else in the whole world. So you want to push him to a point where he treats you the way you need to be treated, because that means that he values you. That means that he loves you. That means that he sees you, and that helps your self-image. That helps you be the wife that God made you to be. Is if he treats you the way you need to be treated. And all those things are correct. And husbands, we need to understand this is what's going through your wife's mind sometimes, or in her heart, even if it's not conscious decisions. Understand that's what she needs from you. She's not doing it because she's just tired and fed up with you, but this is her crying out for you to love her. So don't shut down. Listen. Talk through it. But understand, wife, this can be what can be coming across as you're talking to him. So when frustration comes, when the husband stonewalls, frustration intensifies, and then what happens? Then you start to get mad. You start to get frustrated and angry because the husband has shut down what you're trying to help him become. And you expect him to change, right? You want him to see, both of you, to see where you've made mistakes and apologize. But if he shuts down, he's done. He's ending the conversation. And for a wife, that hurts. And that comes across as frustration and angry. And the more she pushes in that direction, the more the husband will start to feel scolded. Right? Because he's shut down, and in his mind, he's done. He doesn't want to be disrespectful. He doesn't want to be dishonorable towards his wife, and so that could go through his mind. But she still wants that conflict resolution, so she continues to push for it. Not because she's mean, not because she's, just being disrespectful, but it's coming across that way. And the more she pushes for it, now the husband starts to feel scolded. And no man wants to feel scolded by his wife. No man wants to feel like his wife is his mom. Never. No man wants to feel that, right? Women have a hard time with that because you become a mom, you're made to rear children, and your maternal instinct kicks in, and you may not start treating your husband like your child sometimes, and it can be difficult. So this whole thing is not me railing on women to say get it right, quit being so motherly, but I'm trying to hopefully, and it's not me again, this is not like my wisdom, but biblically and through this guy's wisdom that he's done and experience, hopefully this helps the women see how they can come across sometimes if they're not careful. And hopefully this helps the husband see what's really in their heart. That they're not trying to be scolding. They're not trying to be your mom. They're just really trying to connect with you. And when we shut down, we shut off their opportunities to try to do that. And they try their best way that they know how. Right? We need to decipher the code, men, that your wife is giving you. Now hopefully you decipher it way before the scolding part comes and before you stonewall. But men, you need to work on deciphering. Your wife is not yelling out, I don't respect you. She's yelling out, I need your love. I need to resolve this. I need your love. Please love me. Please talk to me. And wives, you need to realize your husband's not shutting down because he doesn't love you. Right? If he's shutting down, realize, okay, what am I saying that's coming across wrong? Decipher his actions and his sayings through the blue sunglasses. And men, decipher what she's trying to say through the pink ones. Now, wives, when you get into those conflicts, and hopefully it doesn't happen often, right, where we get into a part where we feel like we're scolding or being scolded, but ask yourselves, for those of you that have children, that have sons, or if you don't, think about what you might think. What if your son grew up and his wife treated him the way you treat your husband? If your son grew up, maybe he's a little toddler right now, or maybe he's this tall and 14, and you're like, what's going on? That might be me, I don't know. But imagine your son growing up, getting married to a woman, and then she treats him the way you treat your husband. How would you feel about that? How would you feel if some woman treated your boy that way? And if you're honest with yourself and you look at some of the conflicts you've had with your husband, you probably would not be okay with some woman treating your little boy that way. And you'd be all over it, and it would bother you. But if you look at yourself, your husband's somebody's little boy, right? Some mom, that's some mom's boy. So we've realized when we get married, now they're ours. And yes, the two become one. We leave and cleave, right? You are your parents' children, but you belong to each other. You don't respect and honor your parents, but you're your own now. But still, if we think about it in that way, and you can think that way too, men. If you have daughters and they grow up and their husbands treat them the way that you treat your wife, they don't talk to them, they stonewall them, they yell at them. How would you be if someone treated your little girl that way? You'd want to put them in the ground, right? You would not be cool with that a lot of times. But think about it. That's what you're doing. And when we let ourselves and our carnality get the best of us, and we get on that crazy cycle, and we start saying things that are way out of bounds, think about that when that happens. And it'll hopefully to bring you back to treating your wife and loving her with the love that she needs, and treating your husband with respect that he needs. I'm not saying deserves. I'm saying your husband needs that respect. He needs that admiration. And if we think about those things, and wives, if you think about that with your little boy, hopefully that'll help you to not misrepresent what's in here. And husbands, hopefully that'll help you interpret that what she's trying to get to, what she's trying to say. And then the love and respect, they're not the same, right? And we're going to finish up here with this. Oh, wow, there's a lot more pages left than I thought. We're going to finish up with this quickly. Love and respect aren't the same. Think about, a lot of times you'll go, well, love and respect, they're the same thing. Wow, we used the bell. Shoot. You can love your boss, you can respect your boss and not love him, right? Like if you have a boss, ladies, and even men, if you have a boss, you can respect them but not love them, right? So love and respect is not the same. So if you say, I love my husband, and hopefully none of us are in this case, but if you say, I love my husband, but I don't respect him, or he hasn't earned my respect yet, but I love him, and love and respect are the same. I love him, but he just hasn't earned my respect, or I don't respect him. Think about it if the man says, well, I respect my wife, but I just don't love her. That would, Boromir, arrow through the heart, pulling it out. That would devastate you. If your husband said, well, I respect you, but I just don't love you. That would devastate you. But when that happens to a husband, the husband's supposed to be like, they're fine. He knows I love him. So just because I don't respect him, he knows I love him. He'll be fine. He'll earn that respect. The bottom line is husband and wives have needs. And both their needs that they have are equal. Men need that respect. They need it. They may not deserve it, again, but you don't say, well, the wife doesn't deserve the love. No, we're expected to love unconditionally, right? Agape. Men are supposed to agape love their wives, love without conditions. But the husband has to earn the respect. That's a lot of times how it's viewed. The husband needs that respect just as much as you wives need that love. And Ephesians 5:33, men are commanded to love their wives. Wives are commanded to reverence their husbands. Doesn't matter if they've earned it or not. Doesn't matter. They need it just as much as you need that love. So your marriage today, here I'll finish with this. Your marriage today in this world that we live in is at a crossroads. And every day it could be at a crossroads. Will you appreciate your husband's needs for respect, or will you denounce his feelings? Will you focus on the best way to love him is by respecting him in ways that are meaningful to him, or will you focus on what you feel is the key to a happy marriage? Your womanly feelings is the key, and dismiss his needs for respect as male arrogance. Because a lot of times that's what comes across. The need for the man that he needs for respect is just male chauvinist pig, being arrogant. I'll respect him when he deserves it. Your husband needs your respect. He needs it. He needs it from you as his wife. He has to have it. He may not even understand that himself. He may not even know that. But he needs your respect. The Bible clearly gives those commands because it's hard sometimes for a man to love, and it's hard sometimes for a wife to respect. And that's why he tells us do it, because he knows that's how the best marriages work. So your wife or your husband, ladies, needs your respect. He needs it more than he probably even understands. And we'll see as we get into the future, if you give him the respect he needs and he starts feeling that respect, that crazy cycle will turn into a completely different cycle. And you'll start getting the love that you need because you've softened him down. And he start to feel what he needs to feel. Similarly, will the man appreciate his wife's needs for love or just continue to ignore her feelings? Will you look beyond her criticisms and complaints and see that she isn't feeling loved? Or will you just cower before her apparent content and retreat to the shelter of your stone wall? Men, you need to understand your wife needs your love. And not shut down, not stonewall, not cower behind your sense of honor, that you won't say something disrespectful. Understand and see beyond what she's saying and decipher what she's saying, how she needs you to love her. She needs love from you more than anything in the world. If she's going to be who she needs to be, she needs you to love her unconditionally. And when she's not feeling loved, she's going to reach out for you, and she's going to try to get that from you, because that's how she's made, is to go after you and to come closer to you. So don't stonewall that. Don't stonewall those actions. Don't stonewall when those conflicts come. Don't shut down. Talk. See what she's saying. And wives, hear how you're talking. Before you say something, ask yourself, does this sound respectful or does this sound disrespectful? And husbands, before you talk or do something, and maybe even not talk, ask yourself, does this come across as loving or could this come across as unloving? And obviously choose the respectful thing to say. Choose the loving thing to do. If we can do that as couples, this crazy cycle will be rare. And when it comes, you'll see it right away. And you'll know to get off it before it makes a full rotation. And that's the goal. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit. Hopefully you don't feel like it was coming down on anybody. Hopefully you see the wisdom and the biblical principles behind that. That's the goal. We'll pray and